All right, guys. Today's guest is Tyler Call. He is a local fighter. He's also been really successful with weight loss. We're going to hear a little bit about his story. If you want to introduce yourself real quick, you can, Tyler. Then we'll kind of get into what you've done.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Mike. Yeah, I'm Tyler Call, uh, local fighter. On the side, professionally, I'm a tech guy, work at a computer all day. Um, Married, expecting my first kid here in a few weeks, and really just a pretty normal guy. And I've had my ups and downs with weight loss, and I guess that's what we're here to talk about today.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Congratulations on the kid on the way. That's super
Thanks.
cool.
I appreciate it.
So let's jump right into kind of what you did. So I know you said you were successful with weight loss. Where did you kind of start at? Where did you end? And what did you do with the weight loss about? How much did you lose and where was your starting and ending points?
Yeah. So, um, my heaviest that I ever got was I got about 255. The lowest that I've ever been, in adulthood, I guess, is 185, which is my fighting weight. Um, so I kind of sit right in the middle of those two. Well, not right in the middle. I sit about 205 right now,
Okay,
200 pounds. But I think it all started in high school. I played football, and I was a lineman. And
I understand that lifestyle
yeah,
fully.
for anyone who understands
Bigger's
football,
better.
the goal is just to be as big as possible. And so I was lifting really heavy, I was eating heavy, I was just trying to put on weight. And so in high school I was sitting around like 225 to 230. Um, fluffy, but I was still working out really regularly, and so there was a good amount of muscle there too. But then after high school, I kind of kept up with the eating habits, but I didn't keep up with the exercise habits, which I'm sure a lot of people relate to. And I just started to put on the pounds. I had a job where I traveled a lot right out of high school. I was working like a construction crew that we traveled around a lot. So we were staying in hotels. So I was just, buying stuff that was easy to eat, a lot of junk food. So some people put on like the freshman 15. I put on like the freshman 30 or 40. Um, anyway, so I was getting up there pretty heavy, and I really just I didn't like the way it felt. And then I ended up going on a 2-year church mission. And during that time, I made a really concerted effort to try and lose weight. Um, I was really good about eating. I was trying to exercise regularly. Really put in some effort. And I remember the first time that I saw the scale get below 200, um, while I was on this mission, and it was a really exciting moment because like I hadn't seen that number in a very long time, and it was like something I've been working towards. Um, so it was like really exciting. And then so I finished that. I came home and I had lost 50 pounds, and everyone was all happy and excited. And I went to college and kind of climbed back up there. I was back up to like 230, and then I started
Yeah.
exercising again. And I feel like now I've kind of found a good equilibrium, kind of this like just above 200 pounds. So overall, my net weight loss, I would say, has been about 50 pounds, which is a really cool feeling.
Awesome. So there's a couple things I'd love to dive into right there. Was first, let's with the understanding you probably didn't have a ton of resources and a gym or a lot
Mhm.
of stuff as a missionary. So you probably did it with kind of limited equipment, I
Yeah.
assume. So let's talk a little bit about kind of your strategies for first training and then also nutrition while you lost the 50 pounds.
Mhm.
Um, that initial time, and then we'll kind of talk about, maybe mentally handling weight fluctuations after.
Yeah.
But what did your training look like when you were in that weight loss
Yeah,
period?
you're right. I didn't have a lot of resources for that. It was a lot of just kind of like body weight calisthenic exercises. We were walking a lot. And just the main goal there was try and burn more calories than I ate. I was being pretty careful at what I eat. I wasn't eating a lot of junk food. I was trying to eat fairly clean. So nutrition was kind of the main aspect of that. And then doing what I could as far as the exercise, and realizing that this was going to be like a very long-term thing. It was a 2-year mission, and so the goal wasn't to try and like lose it all in a month. It was make it sustainable, make it long term, and just kind of play the long game with it, which ended up working really well for me.
Awesome. And that's a perfect segue. And what kind of next thing I want to talk about is that's at least been 3 or 4 years ago, right? How long has it been since
But
you've lost?
a little bit longer than that. I got home 7 years ago.
7 years ago. So that's
Oh.
actually great. Um, People don't realize how rare it actually is to lose upwards of 30 to 40 pounds and then keep it off for more than about a year. I've myself have ridden the weight roller coaster many a time. So let's talk about kind of two things. First, what is some of the key factors that you've done that's helped you maintain that lower weight and not just, kind of yo-yo back up that I
Yeah.
think a lot of people run into?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the big thing is just sustainability. If your goal is just to lose 20 pounds, then as soon as you see the scale hit the number that you want, you're immediately going to fall back into old habits. So you can't have the goal of like, I want to try and like lose this as fast as possible, or like, and I shouldn't say you can't. I couldn't. That didn't work for me when I was trying to do that. Um, it was more about like focusing on how I felt and putting in like systems in place and just kind of like making like small decisions that just made it like much more sustainable and long term for me, and not thinking about it as weight loss and thinking about it more as like just my overall health.
Awesome. So kind of having the scale still a part of it, more like the peripheral view, not the number one goal, but kind of a nice side effect of just being healthier.
Yeah, I don't remember where I heard this, but somebody, when I was talking about weight loss, they said you should either weigh yourself every day, or you should you should never weigh yourself. Like you either need to be comfortable with like the natural fluctuations that your body will have as you eat different things and you're dealing with life. But I think for a lot of people, for the first like month or two, when you're first trying to like lose weight, don't have a scale. Don't worry about it. Just focus on how you feel physically. Like
Right.
focus on eating the right things. Maybe you check in like every couple weeks just to make sure that like, you know, you're kind of trending in the right direction. But I think sometimes we just like fixate so much on like what does the number on the scale say today and what does that say about me?
Right. Yeah. And I definitely think people underestimate how much your body can fluctuate. Um,
It's wild how much it can fluctuate.
yeah. Obviously, you probably know a lot of that firsthand being a fighter. Yeah. Something we often do is manipulate weight through water cuts and those type of things. So earlier you said you've gotten down to as low as 185. So I'd assume that's
Mhm.
kind of bottom fight weight. So
Yeah.
you're probably a little dehydrated on that scale when you're on it. But something else is really common. Like I said, there's going to be daily fluctuations and bigger fluctuations. What is it that you did that helps you emotionally handle that? Because that's something I see my clients struggle with a lot, and a lot of people where, they do really good for 3 weeks and they lose weight and they're really happy, and then they have like a rough weekend and they eat too much, processed food, and they see
Mm.
that scale jump 4 or 5 pounds in one day, and it like, you know, I think just starts the wheels cycling, and then they have just being like, oh, if I'm already in trouble, I'm just going to kind of
Yeah.
binge and do whatever I can. And so, did you ever find any things that helped you just emotionally handle the fluctuations that you see in your weight better?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Really quick, just like my experience with that, because I think that'll kind of give a little bit of context.
Yeah, please.
A little while to be on like this really restrictive diet. I have a brother who had a friend who did like body competitions,
Yeah.
and so it was a diet that like my brother got, and he passed it on to me. And I was trying to be on that. And it is super restrictive. It's meant to be like a 6 to 8 week like hardcore like you're getting lean for like a show kind of diet. And I was trying that, and I treated it as like this very like black and white thing, and I would check in with my brother. I asked him to be my like accountability person, so every day I would text him, did I exercise that day and did I follow the diet that day? And if I ever had a day where like I didn't follow the diet, I think as soon as I got off, just because I ate something I wasn't supposed to or just got busy with life or whatever, then I was like, oh, I got to make this worth my while. And I'd like run to the store and get like my ice cream and my cookies and everything. And I was like, I got to like, make sure that this is worth it if I'm going to have a day off. Um, and so I think there's kind of like when you have a bad day or a bad weekend, there's like two ways that you can go. One way is either you just like spiral and you're like, well, I'm already off the bandwagon and I'm already done. Especially like if you're somebody who, does it like week at a time. If on Wednesday you mess up and you're like, well, I'll try it again on Monday, and then you spend like 4 or 5 days binging. That's just 4 or 5 days that you kind of messed up. And then the other side of it is some people they just like yo-yo really hard, and so they'll have a bad weekend, and then they need to like punish themselves for it, and so they just don't eat anything on Monday or Tuesday, but then they end up binging again and doing the same thing. So
Right.
I think, like I said, the key is just like sustainability. Just understand that like if I have some pizza on Friday night, that's okay. It's not a
Yep.
problem. But I do need to understand like if I step on the scale, the number will be a little bit bigger because, you know, I have a little bit more sodium. I have a little bit more carbs in my system. I'm holding more water weight. So just kind of like understanding the food that I'm eating and what that will do to my weight as like a natural course of what my body does, I think help a lot. So just understanding like why your body's doing it. I think that's part of it that helps a lot.
Yeah, I definitely have seen that for myself as well, and also some of the people I work with were explaining, the glycogen fluctuation and when you are just more carb dense and you're more
Yeah.
water in your system, and all of a sudden that scale can jump 3, 4 pounds. It won't be there in a day or 2 days. It's just you're going to have that 2 to 3 pound fluctuation. So that's great. So you kind of touch on something that's a good idea is just learn to anticipate it. So it's
Yeah.
it's not that like slap in the face where you're like you're not necessarily binging. You're just saying, hey, like if I'm going to enjoy this piece of pizza, that's great. I'm going to eat. I'm going to enjoy what I want to eat. I'm not going to eat more than I enjoy just for the sake of because I'm, now off a diet, air
Yeah.
quotes, if you will. But um, just enjoying the moment and then being like, and if I'm a little high tomorrow, that's fine. And just knowing it's coming and kind of preparing yourself for that so you don't
Yeah.
freak out and cause those kind of chain reaction behaviors. So, but yeah, man, so it seems like you've been really, really successful. Like I said, holding a 50-pound weight loss for 7+ years is really, really impressive. Most people will never see that or even be able to do that. So, since you've been able to do it, I'd like to get just some of your straight, just like the things that you've learned perspective wise off. So, very first is if you were going to give someone like just one piece of advice who is about to start trying to lose a bunch of weight or just get their health in order, whatever it may be, start on a health journey, what would that be?
It's a good question because I do feel like there's like a lot of personalization that needs to happen with that. But I think if it was just somebody who was coming up to me, I didn't know them very well. Um, I guess a few tips I would say would be like prioritize your protein, really prioritize just your single ingredient foods, your fruits, your
Whole
vegetables,
foods.
things like that, whole foods. Um, and then don't try and change everything all at once. Like make like two, three, maybe four changes to your diet or to your lifestyle and just go from there. I think success feeds on success. And so when you start having a little bit of success, you want to have more. But
Right.
understanding that like physically our body doesn't like to change drastically. So if you try and like change too much, your body will just kind of kick back and say, I don't want to do this.
Right. Yep.
So be just understand that you're taking it like a step at a time and a day at a time and just make small changes and adjust as time goes.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And then I think one of the best things about talking to people with wisdom and who have been down the road is usually they have a couple things where they can look back and be like, oh, I did this wrong. Or
Yeah.
like maybe you had a mistake here or there. What do you think was your biggest mistake when approaching weight loss or something that you're like, if going back, I was going to do it different. I had to learn this the hard way. What's one of those lessons that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I think the really restrictive diet, that doesn't work for me. Um, at least not long term. If I'm, trying to make weight for a fight, then I will be really restrictive. But there is very much the understanding that like that is a 6 week program. And I can, eat whatever I want afterwards. I'll worry about that later. But um I think for myself and for a lot of people, getting really restrictive just leads to that like yo-yo diet that we talked about. Um, and I guess one other one is, how do I want it? If you can make a decision once, make the decision once instead of having to make it over and over again. So, for example, like rather than you're at the store and you want cookies, buying cookies, and then you're trying to be on a diet, so you're trying to say no to these cookies like every single time you go to the pantry. Just say no at their grocery store, and then you
Right.
don't have to say no over and over again.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, I fully understand that one.
yeah, like, I'm sure you've been there too, where you're like, I'll just save these just in case, for a bad day, and then a bad day is like 3 hours later when you want those cookies.
Yeah. I've heard another coach use the term like a bar is a terrible place for a recovering alcoholic on his first week. Like that might not be the best thing. So controlling that food environment is a really
Yeah,
important thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Um,
that's awesome, man. Do you have anything else you'd like to add on before we kind of wrap things up, or?
um, I guess the last thing that I would say is it's a positive thing to get healthy. Like a lot of times we treat like weight loss as like this negative thing, like, oh, I need to lose 20 pounds. Like I don't like the way that I look. Like getting healthy is a positive thing and a positive experience. And I absolutely like have loved the journey. I love the way that I feel. I love like where I know I can go from here. That like I still have so much more on my journey to like learn about and places to go and like more I can do with health. So, just embrace the journey and be proud of yourself for what you've done, but never like satisfied with how far you've come. I
That's
think that's
awesome.
the part.
Man, I really like that. That is something that I I can't stress enough that if you don't enjoy the process of becoming that next version of you, you're never going to make it. And it
Yeah.
needs to be a fun thing. And honestly, if you're not enjoying the goals and when you're succeeding, you're not having fun, you might need to set new goals. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something. I mean, obviously you've been able to really make a long-term change, but I'm sure a lot of that wraps in the fact that, you love being healthier and you love being able to be a fighter and just live a
Mhm.
healthier life as a husband and a soon-to-be father. Once again, congratulations. That's awesome. But man, thank you so much for your time today. I think we covered some really awesome things, and I know it's going to help those who listen. So thank you, and we'll just kind of wrap it up with that. But that was today's episode. So once again, Tyler Call, awesome guy, local fighter, down 50 pounds and is still going strong. So see you, everybody.
Thanks for having me, Mike.